Thank you, sisters. If you can take your places again, please. You okay? You all right? Okay, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your whichever burger you chose. And that you had a little bit of a breather. Thank you very much to all the people who got themselves filmed over lunch. I think Maria and Maureen are quite delighted, so well done. More needed, but also we were going to share, we thought about putting them all up so you could, but we thought actually we'd spare you that. It'll be bad enough looking at yourself on the website. Okay, now I'm just going to ask you a question with regard to the session before lunch. Is everyone okay? Is everyone clear? I mean, okay meaning, you know, the process, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so it's the beginning of yet another journey, but hopefully it will come out. It will come out. I'm just going to emphasize this again. It will come out according to your voice. So please use it. Okay? I can't say that more clearly. Margaret. Margaret, can you help me? No, Margaret Barrett. I have no idea. It's my simple answer, but Margaret's bound to know, I think. Right. Okay. Now, I'll just repeat that because I know people didn't hear it. Because there is no specific number of sisters needed to make a province, but there has to be a viable community out of which the infrastructure needed can be constructed for a province to operate. Okay? Is that right, Margaret? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, can we move on? Is that all right? Yeah. So this afternoon, let's see where we're up to. If you can have a look at this again. I keep labouring it, but it keeps the flow of the process going. Okay, so we started this morning with Moira's presentation on the Charter of the Community, and we hopefully were inspired by that. People seem to have been inspired, and it kindled another little flame. We moved on from there to our local tradition with Maria and Sister Louisa de Missy. I'm sure she'd be proud of you, Maria. And we had a little look then at DC services as one of the ways of passing on some of that heritage, needing other ways, and we recognised it in that way and honoured and celebrated. We moved on then to Teresa, who told us what you said that you could remember was daring in your living memory, which was lovely. And we had, myriads of memories went up there, and there's myriads more that didn't come forward. We all know that. It's a long number of years between us. And then Kathleen told us about some of the ways in which we might try to start to express and celebrate and use that wealth of wisdom and daringness as a platform for our own moving on. And now, that brings us to now. As part of the now, we also had the first part of now before lunch, which was about the journeying together and the internationality. Don't lose that bit of the possibilities of internationality as well. This afternoon, we're going to move into what you sent back as possibilities for our new province plan. That was question 3 on the little leaflet. What would you like to see us doing now? Remembering the call of the Inter-Assemblies document. So Kathleen Fox is going to take you through that, through what you said, and then we're going to give the rest of the afternoon, we will have tea, to exploring that more. There's going to be quite a long process of engagement with each other around what those things were, and we're going to try to end up with some form of consensus around the beginnings of the province plan. Okay, so that's where we're going. And please try and bring with you all of that heritage and all the things that we heard about this morning. So, Kath, where are you? Oh, thank you. In more ways than one.
Good afternoon, sisters. And hello to the sisters at home, and especially in Southport. I'm watching you. I'll be back on Monday. Okay. In her address last night, I think I'm a bit too close to that mic, am I? In her address last night, Ellen said that she came, if you remember, with joy, with anticipation, and terror. Okay? So you've had anticipation, you have had joy. And if you go asleep this afternoon, there will be terror. Okay. So, sisters, my part of the presentation today, again, as Ellen has said, was to look at the question that you had and embracing the future with hope. And that was the third question that we're addressing now. So again, we thank you for the immense amount of responses that came in. And when we were synthesizing all these replies, it went through several syntheses. We went through these, which Kay and Caroline started. Then we went through this, which eventually I think you may get in a pack for later on, which looked at everything, and we tried to stay true to everything that was in the pack, in the responses. And then I actually got down to putting it into a PowerPoint. As we go through this presentation this afternoon, you will see that some of the responses have page 17, page 24, or whatever. Now, these responses respond to the Inter-Assemblies document, the pages in the Inter-Assemblies document. Now, some of you will look at it and say, oh, that's not right, that's not the exact bit. But more or less, I've tried to match them up as I've gone along. Now, if it's not exact, it relates to, okay? So don't shoot the messenger, okay? Okay. So let's begin. And let me just say that these responses are in no particular order, nor are the subjects in any particular order or weighting. Teresa did give me £10, but she told me not to tell anybody if I put the vocation work on first. Okay? So these are the responses regarding the vocations ministry. Okay. You know, some of you may have abandoned hope with regard to the vocation ministry, but actually this was not reflected in your responses. And there appears to be a new awakening, a new fire kindling, and a movement of goodwill and action to support this work. So as you can see, you said you wanted more emphasis on vocation ministry. You wanted it promoted among ethnic groups and descendants of migrant families. We are a different culture now in our country, and it needs to be reflected. Even in our care communities and with ourselves, we need to pray to support the work that's going on if we are not able to do it ourselves. Let's be daring in inviting women to come and pray with us, stay with us and join us. And as we go along, we perhaps are going to question the new ways of formation. But maybe we have to look. We have been talking about internationality, about collaboration, and some of you have reflected this in your response. Prepare the province for new members who will live in a more international community. Okay, so that's our vocation ministry. The next slide is about spirituality, prayer and presence. And remember, these are not the exact words that you used. These are the synthesis of the words that you used. So coming through the responses was a real desire to discern how we are based on a strong community prayer life. Community prayer life was emphasized several times. And the Word of God being the catalyst sometimes of our conversations. That as we sit, we can have spontaneous apostolic reflections, which I'm sure happens. And for our housebound and elderly sisters, faith and mission, as was said this morning, are still important. And we need to use this rich resource as a backup, not a back off. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? To tell them to back off. As a backup, and involve the houses and care communities in what we're doing. How often that we ever write a letter or drop into a house just as interest in sisters in our care communities? How often do we do that? An hour a month, an hour a year? I have to question myself. And there was something this morning that relates probably to this. There was a suggestion that the wealth of our experience is not expressed or not reflected in the title ongoing formation, that it needs to be more of an expression when we're updating ourselves or forming ourselves, that ongoing doesn't seem to fit. Okay? And some of these, I tried to fit them into categories, so if it doesn't actually think, well, that doesn't fit there, it doesn't fit anywhere else anyway, but I wanted to honour what was spoken from the province. Okay? Okay, so then we move on to community life. And I did 2 slides on community life. There is a heartfelt plea from the province to live simply, to live joyfully. And although it says with passion, I don't think there's any doubt that there is great passion in the community for the poor. There's a plea for us, and I've heard this many times over the years, there's a plea for us to look at new forms of belonging. What does belonging to the community look like? Or we have good friends that have come and gone. What does belonging look like in our new order, in our new world? We also have to be countercultural in our response to consumerism. We don't have to have the best of everything. And can we move? I think there was a plea this morning. I heard it coming through on Teresa's presentation. Can we move from a stance of what we can't do because of our age to what we can do given the people that we are? So let's look at our talents rather than our age. That is a very important message coming through. Okay, again, community life. They want us to live within our budgets. Okay. Trust in providence. Is that a contradiction? Trust in providence. Dare to live the present with passion. Passion is a word that's coming through. And dare to face the reality of our ageing, and also be daring in our inclusivity in our community life. Who do we invite in? Be daring. I noticed this weekend there's a conference on justice and peace. How many of us are involved in justice issues at parish level, in our use of the earth resources, in consumerism, in our efforts to preserve this beautiful world that we live in? Okay, can we move on then to the next slide, Eileen, on service? The first few slides really related to trafficking. Again, we are interested in trafficking, and especially in some sort of order with trafficking to women. Can we create safe spaces in our houses to women who are trafficked? Not particularly create a special project for them, but maybe look at our own houses and see how we can accommodate or accompany. And we'd like some sister to become directly involved in the ministry of trafficking with an existing agency. And I think that's happening in very small ways. But you know, it's only when you start to drop things into a bucket that the bucket starts to fill bit by bit. So there is a real urge and a real movement towards that. And I think this is already happening too, but it's something we want to look at more for the future. To dare to encourage sisters to participate in our projects in a voluntary capacity. This is happening, but can it happen more? To continue our projects to the poorest of the poor. And I think this was really in relation to, we have some beautiful projects already to the poorest of the poor. And I think as we look at sort of new initiatives, you know, I'm thinking in particular maybe about Hull. That had a very short span, didn't it? And people are wondering, do we have to discontinue that when it's at the heart of who we are, the heart of the poorest of the poor? That came in relation to that, I think. Again, this plea to be bold and the contradiction, but stay realistic. To keep informed about local poverties and to animate our parishioners or the people around us to be more involved. And I think that's happening again in Vincent de Paul societies, in various things that we belong to within our parish. That we continue in our projects in an advisory capacity. And I think when DC Services comes off the ground, I think this will really come to the fore. And somebody suggested that we converse with the under 66 group, whoever they are, to look at the passion for peoples on the margins of our society. Again, to look and re-look and keep looking so that nobody is missed out. And now is your time, sisters, to go clubbing, because there were a few proposals or a few responses that said that we should get involved with young people, either in youth clubs or as school chaplains, because youth are the church of the future. And again, there's a lot of lonely, isolated people living on their own who see nobody from day to day, from week to week. I remember years and years ago, we used to have clubs for elderly people in, was it Blandford Street and places like that? They don't exist anymore. But how can we have a few people come to our own homes and be a bit creative about how we serve people in other ways? I'm sure it's already happening. Okay. Next one relates to collaboration and internationality. This is in relation to trafficking, but also in relation to other things. So support justice groups. Be just in all our actions and support a living wage. And there was a real plea yet again to look at our affiliates. How can they be our co-partners? What is affiliation? And to offer pastoral accompaniment through the international community. I'm not sure what that meant, but I thought I'd put it in anyway. Journeying together has already been addressed. And again, in our services, to develop and authorise the pastoral role. And it isn't always just on Kathleen Page. I think it's the responsibility of many of us. How pastoral are we, even in if we're walking through some of our homes? What do we like? Who are we? Okay. And again, to make efforts to understand culture and faith differences in our society today. There is a direct reference actually in the Inter-Assemblies document. Liaise with different enterprises supporting the refugees in Cali and at home. Be aware of local issues where the poor are marginalised. It's not just in London. There is life beyond London, they tell me. Look at new ventures of service for collaboration within the Vincentian family, which we're trying to do so much. This is the way forward. And to volunteer with other groups, and there's no need for us to be in charge anymore. Okay. And a number of slides on our heritage. So develop the Vivat resources to ensure staff had the right information in Vincentian values and succession planning. And again, Margaret, I think, and Maria and anybody involved in the Vivat group, this was not just about DC services, this was our services and beyond. So deepen our appreciation of Vincentian heritage through our prayer and study of the primary sources. And don't be afraid to claim our heritage. This was the plea. In the Inter-Assemblies document, there's a quote from Vincent and Louise which says, "We are still being called today to live the gospel in the world in a radical way, following the example of St. Vincent and St. Louise. They successfully united passion for Christ and passion for persons who are poor. Can we? So to embrace the future with hope, let us dare to review our choices, our decisions and commitments in the light of the province responses." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen, and most of all, thank you to you. I hope you can recognise, the trouble with synthesising things is sometimes you don't recognise it at the end of it. But Kathleen has got all the raw data, and we will be sending material out and we'll include that raw data in it so you can see like how it's progressed to here. But if we hadn't done this, then, and I have to say Kathleen did it, it was beautifully done. I can see its threads, but you won't be able to because you haven't seen all of it. We'll make sure that you can as time goes on. But we had to get it to here for us to be able to work with it in a kind of manageable form today. So we're going to spend actually the rest of the afternoon on this material. And we're going to give you plenty of time because as I say, we want to come to the end of this meeting tomorrow, and it gives us a chance to work on what you're going to do this afternoon overnight. We want to come to some form of consensus about the way forward in writing our province plan. Okay, now just to remind you that the work of the rest of the afternoon's main purpose is exactly that. It's to determine and agree the first content of the new province plan from what has come in from the initial meetings you've had, and to give weight to what seems to be the most vital. Even though in the end we might take everything through, we want to see what you think is the most vital. Now, this is about content, it's not about debate. Is that okay, if you get what I mean? We're not here to discuss all these points in detail, like in an open forum in an assembly. What we're trying to determine is the content of our province plan. Now, obviously they overlap because you've got to discuss whether you would want it to go forward or not and why not. But in the end, this is only for stage one. The plan will be written and will go out for consultation again and again, probably, before we've actually got there. Okay, have I confused you? Is that clear? Okay. Now, up on the screen now, you'll see what we want you to do. And I'll repeat it again in a minute. Okay, so we're going to divide you differently in a moment, but when you finally get to your destination, we want you to study the slide given to your table. So one of those slides of Kathleen's with all the content on will be given to one table. And we want you to look up all the references to the document that are on it and check the context. And then come to a consensus at your table on your top three. Now, some of them you'll see from the slides are sort of linked, so you can link them if you want to, that's fine. But we want you to come to your top three. Not because they're the only ones, but because we want a sense of weighting of opinion. All right? And then when you've put them in priority order, write them each separately on a separate slip of paper. I think we've got them, huh? Got the slips of paper? Or you've got notebooks anyway. And mark them 1, 2, and 3. Yeah? And then put them in the relevant pocket numbered either 1, 2 or 3. Kathleen, where are the pockets? Okay, so Kathleen Kennedy's going to put pockets. Where are you going to put them?
I was thinking on the front of the stage there.
On the front of the stage for you to put your slips in. And then, because that's all a bit controlling, come back to the table and have a discussion about anything. And we're going to give you the whole set of slides so that you can choose anything you like. Is that all right? Now, that's going to take all afternoon. Now, we've got tea at 3:30, and then we're going to aim at finishing at 5, so we've got half an hour to get ready for Mass at 5:30. So the whole of the rest of that time is for this. Now comes the fun bit. Okay. In order to kind of make sure we've got as many variations as possible on a theme, we want 14 groups. There are only 10 slides, okay? So each of 10 tables will get 1 slide each, right? The 11th table will be asked to look at all of the community slides. There were 2. So to look across the 2 slides. The next table will be looking across the 3 service slides, and the next one will be looking at the 2 collaboration and internationality slides. So it'll give us a slightly different aspect by looking at the whole subject together. Same exercise. And then one group is going to be given the whole lot and asked to choose one. Now, that's just because we want things to come from slightly different directions. When you've finished, we'll have a folder full of number 1s, a folder full of number 2s, and a folder full of number 3s, which means that we've got some sense, if we compare those different methods, of what you really think about all this. Okay, and we'll take some soundings this afternoon before we break, but we'll synthesize it further overnight and come to some agreement tomorrow morning about the way forward. Does that sound really easy and uncomplicated? Yeah. All right. Now, at the moment, there are 15 tables. The council are going to withdraw, and that will leave 14 tables. So we want 14 tables of 5, and there does really need to be 5, because this is intense work, and if you've got too many at the table, it won't really happen. And anyway, the system won't work. So 14 tables of 5. Can you get yourselves to that place, please? If you need to move, move, and if you don't want to, that's fine. Oh, they're going. Okay, while you're all milling about, I'm just having a quiet word with my friends at home, because they're going to leave us now, because I'm sure they don't want to spend the next 2 hours watching us talk. So thank you for joining us, and come back for Mass if you can. Thank you very much. Bye for now. There are hands going up with people who need people. $14. No, you can move if you want. Yes. You could move if you weren't happy with your group. Yeah. Right, okay, can we just do a check, please?